Yari returned to her chambers late that night, but rest did not come easily. Not even the cool touch of silk pillows nor the sweet perfume of moonvine oil could soothe the storm in her mind. She had fought in border wars, trained alongside titans, broken bones and broken hearts. But never had something so gentle rattled her like this. She had always believed strength was loud, fierce, unrelenting. But the quiet way Eli had said, "Kindness is strength," echoed louder than any war horn. She stood, paced to her window again, and looked out across Verilon. The city glittered under moonlight, clean, proud, controlled. But something in her heart whispered, maybe not whole. In the days that followed, the humans remained mostly observers. They attended diplomatic panels, cultural exchanges, and tech briefings. Eli rarely spoke unless spoken to, but whenever he did, people listened. And whenever Yari entered a room, her eyes sought him. One morning, she found herself walking near the central arboretum where rare plants from across the sector bloomed. She hadn't come looking for Eli, not consciously. Yet there he was, seated on a bench near a shimmering fern, sketching. She paused, unsure why her steps had brought her there. "You draw?" she asked. Eli looked up, his pencil paused. "I try to remember things as they are. Not as people tell me they were." Yari stepped closer. "Most men here don't draw. They conquer, or display." He looked back to the page, then smiled gently. "Maybe that's why their memories are always written in stone." She sat beside him. Not close, but not far. A breeze carried the scent of blooming silver shade petals between them. "Your people confuse us," she admitted. Eli chuckled. "We confuse ourselves sometimes." She turned to him, studying the soft lines of his face. There were no sharp angles. No battle scars. But his eyes had seen things, not just war, but grief, sorrow, and maybe even love. "You saved my niece," she said again. "I would do it again. Even if you had died." Eli nodded. "A child's life is worth more than my pride." That sentence shook her more than she expected. In Varelian culture, pride was currency. To say it could be set aside was revolutionary. "How do you live like that?" she asked. Eli looked at her, thoughtful. "By waking up every day knowing I have nothing to prove, and everything to protect." Word of their conversation spread. Quietly, like mist before dawn. There were no declarations, no public flirtations. But people watched. Varelian males grew restless. Warriors trained harder. Shouted louder. As if trying to reclaim the attention they were used to owning. Hrothgar, especially, seethed. One evening, he approached Yari at a military demonstration. His voice was low but firm. "He doesn't belong here." Yari raised a brow. "Neither do you if you speak to me that way. You would bond with a male who cannot lift a stone. I would bond with one who would lift a life." Hrothgar stared at her, stunned. Yari walked away without waiting for his reply. That night, Yari couldn't sleep again. So she returned to the garden. Eli was there, sitting cross-legged beneath a tree, his notebook closed this time. He looked up as she approached, but said nothing. "Do your people believe in soul bonding?" she asked softly. Eli tilted his head. "Some do. We just call it different things. Love. Partnership. Connection. For us, it is mind-sharing. Dance. Fusion of memories." Eli gave a small smile. "Sounds terrifying." "It is," she admitted. "But also freeing." She stepped forward and offered her hand. Eli took it. In the center of the garden, under twin moons, their palms met. And their minds opened. It wasn't like falling. It was like becoming. Yari saw his childhood, alone, quiet, bullied for being soft-spoken. His first heartbreak. The pain of exile from a world that valued aggression over compassion. Eli saw her first scar, the day she was told not to cry, the loneliness of being feared rather than understood. They shared it all. When it ended, they stood for a long time, breathless. Yari's voice was barely a whisper. "We're not supposed to bond with outsiders." Eli reached up and brushed a silver petal from her hair. "Then maybe the rules were wrong." She smiled. Truly, for the first time in cycles. Beneath Virelia's twin suns, the city buzzed with a strange new energy. Rumors traveled faster than official decrees, and in every courtyard, marketplace, and training arena, whispers of the highborn Yari and the human male had become impossible to ignore. Some called it scandal. Others, prophecy. Eli Morgan had not lifted a war stone. Had not bellowed his presence across the grand square. And yet, somehow, his name passed lips with awe and fire. In the council tower, elders debated his presence in hushed tones. In warrior halls, younger males pushed harder through trials, furious to reclaim the attention slowly bleeding from their veins. But among the women of Varelia, especially the young, a new idea had taken root, perhaps strength had been misdefined. Eli was unaware of most of it. He spent his days quietly. Observing. Listening. Sometimes sketching in the garden or reading in the archives. He attended council sessions when requested but rarely spoke unless asked. He was, by all accounts, unremarkable in his ambition. Yet, people watched him. Especially the women. "He does not seek praise," one said. "He asks questions instead of making demands," another added. "He notices things. Not just people, but feelings." That alone made him a mystery. Yari was no longer trying to resist the change within herself. She didn't flaunt her affection. There was no public declaration. But when she passed Eli, her steps slowed. When they shared a table at diplomatic gatherings, her body leaned slightly toward him. When she spoke, she sometimes echoed his words. And the city noticed. One afternoon, the Cultural Exchange Council proposed a demonstration, a day of challenges in the central arena, where Varelians and humans alike could showcase skills, ideals, and values. To strengthen alliances, they said. In truth, it was a spectacle. An excuse for Rothkar and others like him to publicly diminish what they saw as the creeping softness spreading through their culture. Eli received the invitation with a quiet nod. He showed no hesitation. Yari offered to speak on his behalf, but he declined gently. "Let them see for themselves," he said. Yari pressed her lips together. "They want to humiliate you." "Or themselves," he replied. "I'll only show who I am. That should be enough." The arena was packed. Thousands of citizens gathered beneath fluttering banners. Highborn families occupied marble balconies. Young warriors lined the edges, hoping to impress. Drums beat in rhythm. Announcers shouted names. One by one, contestants stepped forward. Varelian males performed displays of raw power, wrestling giant beasts, bending metal rods, leaping impossible heights. Applause rang like thunder. Then Eli entered the arena. He wore no armor. Only a light tunic, boots, and a utility belt. He carried no weapons. Some laughed. What will he do? Paint a picture. Perhaps he'll recite poetry at us. Yari watched from the council's platform, her expression unreadable. Eli approached the podium, bowed respectfully, and waited. The first trial was set, strength and precision combined. A heavy stone slab had to be moved through a narrow maze without touching the walls. Varelians carried it overhead with shouts, slamming it against corners but muscling through. Eli approached the slab, studied the maze, then instead of lifting it, he crouched and used the rolling rods from his kit to move the stone slowly and smoothly, never touching a side. Silence followed. He didn't even break a sweat, someone whispered. He solved it, another murmured. Not fought it. Second trial, the empathy gauntlet. Contestants faced simulated civilians in distress, holographic representations of crisis, fear, and confusion. Varelian males shouted commands at them, lifting injured dummies, barking orders. Eli knelt, spoke gently to the simulations, assessed each situation, and used practical tools to stabilize them. He moved like water, adjusting to each scenario without raising his voice. The crowd went quieter. Final trial, combat evasion. A Varelian tradition. A dozen small bots fired soft projectiles in randomized patterns. Most warriors charged, smashing them or dodging wildly. Eli walked calmly through the pattern, watching, predicting, stepping out of the way before each shot. He reached the other end untouched. Only the wind moved now. Then, Hrothgar stood. Enough games, he bellowed. Face me. The crowd stirred. Eli paused. Hrothgar stepped into the ring, clad in dark armor. No tools. No tricks. Strength against strength. Show us what you are. Eli looked to the council. I did not come here to fight. Hrothgar spat. You disgrace our arena by refusing. Eli faced him. I choose not to harm. That is my strength. The arena gasped. Hrothgar charged anyway. Eli did not flinch. He stepped aside. Hrothgar skidded, turned, charged again. This time Eli ducked, sidestepped, and let the warrior fall on his own momentum. Stop, Eli said. You fight because you're afraid of being forgotten. Hrothgar roared, but didn't rise. The crowd was silent. Yari stood. Let him go, she said, voice firm. He has already won. That night, Verilon glowed softer. Fires burned lower. Voices hushed. At the archive tower, Yari and Eli walked alone beneath starlight. You humbled him, she said. I didn't want to. And that is why you did. She stopped walking. You could have hurt him. You could have taken everything from him. Eli looked at her. That would have made me know better. She touched his hand. My people are watching you, Eli. Not because of your victories. But because you make us question what we call strength. He turned toward her, eyes soft. And what do you call it now? I call it, you. And she kissed him. Not with passion. Not with hunger. But with quiet certainty. The kind that doesn't need to prove anything. Verilon was a city built on echoes, the cries of warriors from centuries past, memorialized in stone and ceremony. The architecture bore scars from battles long concluded, and yet its people marched to the same drums, clinging to tradition as if strength alone could shield them from change. But change had come, and it had not arrived bearing swords or banners. It had come in the form of a human with quiet eyes and steady hands. Eli Morgan. By morning, the storm had begun. Not of fire or war, but of opinion. The arenas were silent, but the corridors buzzed. He refused to fight. He made Hrothgar fall without landing a blow. He spoke of mercy, and the people listened. In the High Council chamber, voices rose in fury and fear. Senior advisors, some with dozens of victories etched into their armor, shouted over one another. This weakens us. Our young will forget what it means to be Varelian. She must be corrected. Banished, if needed. She. Not even named. Yari, highborn of the Eastern Range, warrior of 100 skirmishes, protector of the inner provinces. Reduced to a pronoun because of her bond with a human. Yari sat silently in the chamber, her eyes unblinking, her back straight. She said nothing until the last accusation fell flat against the floor like a dropped blade. Are we so threatened, she said finally, by a man who chooses not to raise his fist? We are threatened by what he represents, spat General Kalen, a brute of a man whose armor barely fit his swelling form. Your affection clouds your duty. And your fear clouds your judgment, she replied. In the lower quarter, a group of Varelian women gathered under the moonshade canopy. Among them were scholars, trainers, merchants, and even a young translator who had once served tea to Eli. He thanked me, the girl whispered. For what? For the tea. They sat in silence, absorbing the weight of it. Varelian males did not thank. They commanded. And the idea that gratitude could be strength was blooming like wildflowers in minds long closed. Eli, meanwhile, spent his morning tending a cracked irrigation system outside the city garden. He wasn't asked. He had just noticed it leaking the day before and brought tools from the diplomatic station. You don't have to do this, a gardener said. I know, Eli replied, smiling. But someone should. We have maintenance crews. And they have a long list of tasks. This one is short. When he finished, the gardener looked at him differently. You fixed it. Without being told. Eli shrugged. Water should flow. Gardens should grow. You should be a poet. I think I'm too quiet for that. That evening, Yari arrived at the human quarters, robes swept back, armor left behind. Walk with me, she said. Eli followed her without question. They walked along the edge of the cliff gardens, where vines hung over deep violet chasms and the wind smelled of salt and mineral. The council wants me stripped of title, she said. Eli looked at her, not surprised. Because of me? Because of what you show them. Because of what I see in you. He stopped. Then maybe you should walk away. From me. Before it gets worse. She turned to face him. Eli. Do you think I am afraid of worse? I have bled on battlefield stone, slept in caves with beasts howling outside, walked into firestorms because my people needed me. Then why stay with someone who cannot shield you the way they can? Because you don't need to shield me, she said. You see me. And that makes me stronger. He took a step toward her. I don't know what happens next. Then we walk it together. She held out her hand. He took it. It began with silence. On the morning of the ceremony of choice, Verilon's usual chorus of clanging armor and roaring drills was replaced by a quiet anticipation that weighed heavier than war fog. This day came once every 12 cycles, where women of high rank would publicly choose their bond mates in the temple amphitheater. The traditions were sacred. The ceremony older than recorded history. Choices made here determine not only alliances and lineage, but power. Never had a non-Varelian been chosen. Never had a human been allowed to step into the selection circle. But that was about to change. And everyone knew it. Yari stood atop the marble stairs of the amphitheater, wrapped in ceremonial robes of black and gold. Each thread in the garment had been hand-dyed with metallic pollen from the high cliffs. A crown of coiled silver adorned her head, and her face was calm, too calm. Below her, the crowd gathered. Noble families whispered in their balconies. The council elders sat on high thrones of carved crystal, watching with thin-lipped expressions. Soldiers stood in rigid lines. The temple priests held up glowing archives, ready to record every name, every bond. Eli stood at the back. He wore no ceremonial garment. Just his usual dark tunic, clean and modest. He didn't fidget. He didn't sweat. But his heartbeat thudded harder than it had the day he saved Yari's niece. One by one, the women stepped forward. I choose Karnath of the third pillar. I choose Venal of the border patrol. With each announcement, the selected male would step forward, place his hand on the ceremonial flame, and receive the bonding crystal from the woman. Applause followed. Some laughter. Cheers from the lower ranks. Then, it was Yari's turn. She walked down the marble stairs slowly, deliberately. The amphitheater hushed. 100 breaths held. Even the wind seemed to pause. She passed Hrothgar. His expression was unreadable, not rage, not surprise. Something in between. A battlefield before the first blade is drawn. She passed the noble heirs. They stiffened. Then, she passed the rows of Varelian males entirely. And walked toward the human. Eli did not move. Not even as murmurs turned to cries. Yari stood before him and held out the bright blue crystal bond. I choose, she said clearly, the one who does not shout to be seen. The one who does not raise his hand in anger. The one who stands firm in storms but never seeks a crown. She looked into his eyes. I choose Eli of Earth. My bond. My equal. Shock was not strong enough a word. Some in the audience laughed, hoping it was a performance. Others shouted. One elder stood, pointing, trembling. This is a violation of sacred right. But it was too late. Yari placed the crystal band around Eli's wrist. It shimmered to life, glowing with ancient magic and recognition. Once done, it could not be undone. In the high balcony, the High Matrona rose. This council will speak on this breach of custom, she declared. Yari turned to face them. Then speak. But we have already chosen. Outside the temple, chaos simmered. Some citizens wept in rage. Others whispered with awe. Young women gripped each other's hands, wondering if such freedom would ever be theirs. In the barracks, Hrothgar sat alone. No celebration awaited him. No choice. He had always thought he was next. Always believed power alone would win Yari's heart. Now he watched it slip away into the arms of someone who had never competed. In the shadows, resentment turned inward. The days after the ceremony of choice passed not with celebration but with tension. Verulan, the proud capital of a strength-worshipping world, had been split in two. In the public squares, angry debates surged like wildfire. In the shadowed corridors of power, the High Council's rage congealed into dangerous resolve. And yet, under the growing storm, something soft began to bloom. Yari and Eli did not leave the city. Many had expected them to. Even some humans, wary of political fallout, quietly suggested relocation. But Yari refused. If we leave, they win, she said. They'll claim we fled because we were ashamed. Eli understood. And so they stayed. Their days became quiet acts of defiance. They walked through market lanes hand in hand. They shared meals at outdoor cafes where silence fell like hammers. They visited temples together, heads bowed not in apology but unity. And slowly, the whispers shifted. One afternoon, a girl approached them at the rain harvest courtyard. She was no one of rank. Just a scholar's daughter, small and soft-spoken. I placed a flower on a human's table today, she said. Eli looked up. Was he surprised? He cried. Eli smiled. Then you did something right. Yari took the girl's hand. You are brave. Only because you showed me how. In the halls of the High Council, the backlash festered. This is insurrection, General Kalen barked. Not yet, said Elder Soren, voice cold. But it soon will be. We must make an example. Plans were whispered. Investigations ordered. Loyalty tests resurrected from a darker time. At night, council guards patrolled more aggressively. And in the center of it all, Hrothgar remained silent. Hrothgar had not spoken since the ceremony. Not to his comrades. Not even to his father, a military chancellor. He trained alone. He fought the air like it had betrayed him. But nothing dulled the sting. Not the cracked bones of practice dummies, not the medals still hanging in his chamber. What good was strength, if no one desired it? Eli woke one morning to find a crystal tucked beneath their door. He held it up. It pulsed softly, a message orb. When he activated it, Yari's former mentor appeared in the hologram. The council will soon move. Not against you directly, they dare not. But they will target those who follow you. Yari clenched her jaw. We have to act first. Eli frowned. Not with force. No, she said. With truth. They organized a gathering. Not in secret, but in light. At the amphitheater where their bond had shocked the world, they invited citizens to speak. Not just warriors, but vendors. Artists. Students. Farmers. One by one, voices rose. I no longer believe silence is strength. My daughter wants to choose for herself. Should I tell her she can't? He helped my father when he was injured, even when our own kin walked past. Eli did not speak until the end. He stood simply, wearing no armor, no title. I don't want your throne. I don't want to replace your heroes. I just want to live with honor, with the one who chose me. He looked at Yari. That is enough. And for many, it was. It began in the dark. Not the quiet dark of night, but the heavy dark of a world about to tip. The council had issued no formal decree, but arrests had begun. Not of Eli, nor Yari. They were too visible. But students. Gardeners. A temple singer who'd spoken kindly of the human bond. One by one, the quiet voices were taken. And in response, the city fell silent in a new way. Not of peace. Of pressure. But pressure, like time, carves stone. On the seventh night, fire bloomed. Not from riots, from torches. Hundreds of them. Not raised in violence, but held aloft in silence. Citizens gathered outside the Hall of Echoes, where the council met. No weapons. No shouting. Only light. Eli and Yari stood among them. Not leading, not commanding. Simply standing. When the council members emerged, eyes wide and spines stiff, they saw a city that had already made its choice. Hrothgar stood in the shadows of the western wall, watching. He had thought himself forgotten. Replaced. Unneeded. But as he looked upon the crowd, the lights, the unity, he felt something unfamiliar. Shame. Not because he was weaker. But because he had spent his life being loud, and had never been truly heard. He stepped into the light. He walked through the crowd, straight toward the council platform. And he knelt. I am Hrothgar, he said. And I was wrong. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Strength is not silence, or fear, or anger. It's choosing to carry the weight of others. Today, I choose that. He looked at Eli. I hated you. Not because you were weak. But because you were seen. And I wasn't. Eli stepped forward. Offered his hand. Hrothgar took it. Cheers erupted. Not loud. Not wild. Just enough. In the days that followed, the council faltered. Laws were questioned. Oaths rewritten. A new chamber was formed, the circle of voices. Half council. Half citizens. For the first time in centuries, Varelia changed its shape. Not through conquest. Not through collapse. Through choice. Months later, a new statue rose in the central garden. Not a warrior with a blade, but a man holding a child. Beside him, a tall woman with no weapon, only a hand placed gently over his heart. Beneath it, a single inscription. To be strong is to love. To be brave is to change. In the still garden beyond the statue, Eli and Yari walked in silence. They still stare, he said. Let them. Some stares are in wonder now. He smiled. We started a revolution. No, she said. We started a conversation. The revolution followed. And they walked on. Not leaders. Just people. Just equals. And at last, Varelia breathed. Not in conquest. Not in fear. In peace.